Good morning, Oklahoma. I'm Curtis Hare and welcome to SUNUP. Well, avian influenza cases are spreading across the country in backyard chicken and commercial operations. And we're joined now by Dr. Rosslyn Biggs, our extension veterinarian. And Rosslyn, has there been any cases popped up in Oklahoma yet?
We've not had any in Oklahoma. However, there have been cases of high-path avian influenza in Kansas and Missouri.
What are some things that producers can do to, limit that exposure?
The basic primary thing is biosecurity in all types of flocks, whether those are in commercial flocks or backyard flocks, that we're taking those biosecurity measures, keeping the separation and the isolation present for those birds, and making sure we're keeping the wild, in particular waterfowl, not having some intermingling between our domestic poultry and those wild birds.
So, just to start off, what are some measures, like actual physical measures, that they can take to separate those from the wildfowl?
Sure, absolutely. One of the main things we've seen, because again, we see it in our waterfowl, we want to make sure that our backyard birds are not sharing common water sources, where we might have ducks or geese in particular in the pastures or that sort of thing. We also want to think about our own clothing. If we don't want to be bringing the virus to our birds themselves, and so we want to think about, do we have separate footwear? Do we have separate attire that we're taking care of our birds, and then changing if necessary if we're dealing with other birds or separate flocks. We also want to think about just keeping the separation. We've got a coop behind us, right? Making sure that we don't have fecal matter from wild birds that can enter that space, particularly if it's an open top type coop or housing type area, that those interactions, again, the interface between wild birds and our domestic poultry is not happening.
So, is this a virus? Is it zoonotic at all? Does there need to be any concerns there?
In very rare cases, and usually that is really direct contact between birds that with high path avian influenza and humans, we can see some transmission there. So that's one of the primary reasons why our animal health officials, as well as our human health officials, are concerned about this virus.
In regards to, there's the possibility that it might be zoonotic, but are eggs and chicken, is that safe to eat?
Yeah, we have, again, the safest and most affordable food supply in the United States, but in this particular case, all eggs, all poultry products, etc., are safe to eat. How
do you know if one of your birds are sick?
This is a very significant virus, particularly for our poultry species. We can see it in other types of birds, wild birds in particular. As we've talked about, waterfowl, they may not show clinical signs, our wild species, but in our backyard poultry and in our commercial poultry, one of the hallmark signs is actually sudden death, unfortunately. These are birds that are healthy and thriving one day and deceased the next. And so with any influenza, we want to see, are there changes in egg production? Are there changes in appetite? Do we have any, nasal secretions, discharge, coughing? Those kind of things may be an early indicator that we have this going on. And we want to encourage producers, wherever you are in the state of Oklahoma, if you see signs that are concerning for you, to call the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture. You can call your extension educator as well. They have all those resources. We want to report those concerning signs in our bird species and have someone come out and take a look, because we have great producers here in Oklahoma, and we want to make sure we do a good job to keep people in business.
So, going forward, like we said, it's not in Oklahoma yet. It could be. What are some, kind of final thoughts that you want to get out there? Like, just it is a stressful time, but is there anything that you could offer that, there are things that you can do to help stop
Absolutely.
this?
Whether you are a commercial producer or whether you're a backyard producer, we need to focus on biosecurity. We've got some great extension resources, in particular our online course that people can take, but also take a look at our fact sheets as well as what's being put out by the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture and the U.S. Department of Agriculture on specific measures that make the most sense for your operation.
Dr. Rosslyn Biggs, Extension Veterinarian here at Oklahoma State University. And if you'd like a link to some of those extension resources that she mentioned, go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
Hi, Wes Lee with this week's Mesonet weather report. Spring officially arrived this past week, and it came to us roaring like a lion. With strong winds, wildfires, a tornado, and finally a statewide rainfall event we have been waiting on. Here is a 2-day rainfall map from earlier this week as the storms moved through the state. For the first time in a long time, all 120 of the Mesonet sites received rainfall. While we would have liked to see more in the drought-stricken west, every little bit helps. Strong winds, often the case ahead of a cold front like this one, kicked off several wildfires. Low relative humidity, shown here in red, along with sustained 30-mile-an-hour south winds, created a scary situation. Large fires often show up as hot spots when looking at an infrared satellite image, like these spots shown here at 5 p.m. on Sunday afternoon. The rainfall will help squelch wildfires for a while, but they will likely continue to be an issue until greenup is completed. Winds continued after this storm is shown here on this wind gust map on Tuesday morning. Winds are always something we deal with in the spring. This map is the long-term average wind speed by month, showing peak winds usually occur in March and April. Now here's Gary with finally an improving drought picture.
Thanks, Wes, and good morning, everyone. Well, finally we had our first big rainfall since early last fall. Let's see what it did to the new drought monitor map. Well, we can see definite relief across much of the western two-thirds of the state. We still have plenty of that extreme to exceptional drought, the red to the dark red colors across northwestern down through southwestern Oklahoma, across west central Oklahoma, also much of the Oklahoma Panhandle, but we also have lots more of that moderate to severe drought. I know that doesn't sound great, but it's certainly better than the widespread extreme to exceptional drought that we had for the last couple of weeks and really for the last few months. If we take a look at the 30-day rainfall, and this is really dominated by that last storm system, we can start to see where the better places are and also the places that didn't get quite enough. So really, if you take a look at this 30-day rainfall map from the Mesonet, the darker greens, the yellows, the oranges, those are the places that got the best rainfall. Now, we look at those trouble areas we still see down across the southwestern quarter of the state and also much of the Oklahoma Panhandle, save for about the eastern 1/6 of the Panhandle. Those are the areas that are still lacking in good moisture, and they really need a good dose or they're going to continue to accelerate drought impacts in the near future. That shows up even better than the percent of normal rainfall map for the same time frame. Again, those oranges, those reds, even those yellows, those are places that didn't see the really good rainfall over the last 30 days. And again, much of that is due to the last storm system. So all those greens you see on there, those are the places that really saw the good drought relief. And that's a pretty significant part of the state. If we take a look at the temperature and precipitation outlooks for the April through June time frame from the Climate Prediction Center, we'll see how important that last storm system was. Really, we see increased odds of above normal temperatures across the entire state, but especially across the western half or so of Oklahoma, and below normal precipitation, but especially across the western 1/3 and the Oklahoma Panhandle. So again, that's the area that really, much of it didn't see great relief this last storm system. So it's not looking good, at least on the long-term outlooks for further relief, but we just need a couple of more storm systems and we'll start to blow that drought out of that area as well. So we just need Mother Nature to keep those storms coming. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
With us today is Derrell Peel, OSU Extension Livestock Marketing Specialist. Derrell, the war in Ukraine is a continuing situation. What impacts have you noticed for cattle markets?
You know, in terms of cattle and beef, the impacts we've seen are really more indirect than direct. In terms of, you know, global beef trade, it's really not an issue with respect to Russia or Ukraine. Russia is a minor importer of beef, and the U.S. hasn't traded any beef or pork or poultry, frankly, for a number of years with Russia. So those kind of direct effects are not there, at least not at this point in time. Obviously, the grain market situation has big implications in terms of feed markets, and the cattle markets have reacted to that. And then, of course, broad-based energy prices affects everybody, and so it's affecting us on the production side as well as, you know, raising concerns on the consumer side.
Are there any additional impacts we might see?
Well, you know, obviously we don't know how this thing's going to play out, so there's lots of unknowns and uncertainty, but you know, the impacts we mentioned will continue there for a while, so the feed market impacts are going to continue to be there, the energy market. You know, and on the energy side, one of the things we're watching for would be more impacts on the consumer part in terms of the impacts on beef demand. High gas prices takes money out of consumers' pockets, and the beef demand is pretty susceptible to impact. So we haven't really seen that yet, at least not that we can be sure of, but that's something we'll have to watch for going forward.
What do you expect for cattle markets in the coming months?
You know, we're still on track for higher cattle prices this year. The trend is up. We've got a lot of optimism on the price side built into this market, and I don't think anything's going to change that. Cattle numbers are tighter. You know, the overall situation on that side hasn't changed. And so the things we're talking about are impacts on the input side. And so the question of profitability is certainly more up in the air. But from a price standpoint, we're looking for higher prices. Probably the highest prices of the year for most classes of cattle will occur in the last part of the year.
What can consumers expect for beef prices as we move towards grilling season?
You know, we've had a lot of talk about high beef prices. They've been going up for several months. And, you know, there is a limit. We watch that, although we haven't really seen a lot of obvious pushback at this point. Grilling season will seasonally put some additional upward pressure on those prices. I don't think we're going to see beef prices come down very much. For all of the reasons we've talked about, beef production is expected to fall as we go through the year, so supplies will get tighter, even if there is kind of a limit. So beef prices may not go up as fast as they have in recent months. I don't think they're going to come down very much.
And finally, tell us about the Eastern Oklahoma Cattle Summit that's coming up in April.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that April 14th in McAlester, Oklahoma, the Eastern Oklahoma Beef Cattle Summit will be happening. It's an all-day program. It will be at the Southeast Oklahoma Expo Center, just outside of McAlester. And so it's a good program, all-day program. There'll be a number of speakers there. I will be there as part of that. And the theme of that day is going to be how to manage through these high input costs.
Thank you, Derrell. We'll see you again next time.
Okay.
So canola in the state of Oklahoma is kind of been a mixed bag over the last couple years, and we've seen that with the drop of acres. This year we've had some really good prices and really good potential. We see the fall didn't do us really well. We didn't have the greatest conditions to establish a crop, but a crop that did get established has looked good all the way through the fall into the spring. Because we were dry kind of going into the wintering months, we did lose on a lot of these fields a significant amount of tissue, and depending on how dry you were and what the conditions were going in, this field behind me was very dry going in. It's a sandier soil, so it doesn't hold a whole lot of moisture, and we see because of that it lost a whole lot of that leaf tissue we developed in the fall, was not able to overwinter and come with the spring. So what we're doing now in the spring is we're having to develop a lot of that leaf tissue back. And before we go reproductive, we need that leaf material, that green plant material, to be able to conduct that photosynthesis and get us through the rest of the season. These recent rains and these nice temperatures has allowed the crop to kind of almost wake up. Just a couple of the big things that we have to worry about when we do go reproductive and we do go through that bolting stage. A lot of our herbicides that we typically have available to us during vegetative stage, they do go out. So growers that have canola that are in this stage that are starting to see a lot of green leaves kind of come up, we need to start thinking about herbicides, trying to get those, 3 to 4 to 5 good looking days that have good temperatures, go out and make an herbicide application. It's also time to start thinking about nitrogen. Nitrogen is very high, so have a very good examination of what you think your yield potential of your crop is, and maybe adjust your nitrogen rates accordingly. A 30 bushel canola crop that went through this winter might not be a 30 bushel canola crop anymore, and we might have to vary or change our expectations to kind of meet that, and therefore be able to adjust our nitrogen rates accordingly. The other thing is we do have a pretty significant amount of blackleg that I've seen here and there, at least throughout some of our locations. It is one thing to need to look out for. And as always, the spring comes with insects, and especially if we have a lot of green material, if we do start getting more timely rains and warming up and a lot of green vegetation starts showing up, we will want to start, kind of looking at the worms, aphids, various other species like that. That's a couple of just key things to be thinking about if you do have canola out in the field. Some things to be thinking about in the next weeks to months to kind of make sure that we can get this crop where it is now to the end of the season.
Well, Oklahoma finally got some very much needed rain. So Kim, how's that going to impact farmers?
Well, it's going to let them sleep at night for one thing. They finally will probably have some commodities to sell. Now they'll need a follow-up of rain. It's both good for the wheat producer and then producers waiting to put that corn in the ground. It's going to give them some moisture to do plant the corn, the grain sorghum, maybe soybeans, cotton a little later if we can get some more rain down in southwest Oklahoma. But it's sure going to let them sleep.
All right, so let's just jump right into the prices. What's going on with wheat?
Well, if you look at wheat prices, we can go back to early February. Prices were around $7.50. Before the war started, they got up to just above $8. After the war, they went from $8 to $11.50, and then they came back down, to near $9 and back up. And they seem to be stabilizing right above $10 a bushel. Now, on wheat, you also had a change in the basis. Now, these are the harvest prices, not the nearby prices. This is for what they can sell 22 wheat for. That basis was 25 cents off the July contract price. After we got into the war, about a week into it, that basis dropped from a minus 25 down to a minus 85. In other words, took 60 cents off of that price. It's now gained up to about a minus 65, picked up about 20 cents. But the elevators are taking risk protection with the wheat prices.
So what about corn and soybean prices?
Well, corn prices, that basis has been a steady 25. Now this is for the harvest 22 prices. You look at the price coming in from early February to February the 21st. A small increase in corn prices there. Since the 21st of February, we picked up corn prices from about $5.75 forward contract for harvest delivery up to $6.40. Looks like it's still trying to go up and maybe stabilizing around this area. You look at soybeans, again, that basis stayed 75 under that November contract. You had a big increase from about $13.60 up to $14 before February the 21st when the war started. And that's because the Brazilian crop, the estimates kept going down. Since then, we dropped off right after the war started, then we came back up. It seems to have stabled right around 14, 13.50 to 14 there, but not much impact from the war.
And we can't forget about cotton, so what's going on there?
Well, I don't think the cotton's being impacted any at all by what's going on in Ukraine. Early February, $102 a hundredweight there, dropped off to 100. It's up to around 109 now, and I think that's just a pure world demand for cotton phenomena that's wanting cotton all the way out into harvest. And
the big question that you're just hearing around the state is when are prices going to break?
That's the question producers are, and nobody knows. Again, I think the prices are finding a location and an area that they're stable and comfortable with. But as you know, things can change relatively fast. Now, next week, the USDA is going to release the seedings report. One analyst released some early estimates. They had total wheat planted acres at 47.5 million acres. Those are what the market's expecting. It could cause some changes, but I think the major factor is what's going on over in Europe and Ukraine.
All righty, thanks, Kim. Kim Anderson, grain marketing specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
Good morning, Oklahoma. Thanks for joining us on Cow-Calf Corner. This week, we talk about part 2 of the impact of bull selection. Last week, we posed the question to you at the conclusion. We'd taken a look at our mature cow herd. We had figured out we had 1,400 pound cows, 85% of them were getting bred, 82% of them were weaning off a calf. Those calves were weighing 500 pounds. That equated out to about 410 pounds of weaned calf per exposed female. It identified some areas that we wanted to make improvement in, and we started working through the steps to figure out how to apply EPDs to making that improvement. We said we had been using 5 bulls that were responsible for that cow herd. The average EPDs of those highlighted on that bottom line, and we considered bull 1 or bull 2, knowing that bull 1 wasn't going to do much to change the direct weaning growth of the calves, but was going to give us a bump in fertility with a 6-pound advantage in heifer pregnancy. Weren't going to go anywhere in milk. He was going to take off about 20 pounds of mature cow weight. Bull 2 was going to give us 30 more pounds of weaning weight without changing fertility or milk level, and we were going to get about an extra 34 pounds of mature cow weight with him. The question became, which of those bulls adds more profit potential? And that's where we tie in. If we put bull 1 to work for us and we fast forward 5-6 years and think about those daughters we're going to keep out of each of those bulls and where are we going to be, bull number 1, in taking 20 pounds off our mature cow weight, we're going to have a set of females running around that are weighing about 1,380. With that 6% advantage in his heifer pregnancy EPD, we're going to bump that pregnancy rate up from 85 to 91. And accordingly, we're going to see our percent calf crop wean per exposed female bump up from 82 to 88. Now, we've still got 500 pound weights on those calves we're weaning, but because we're seeing more of our cows wean off a calf, we actually drive up pounds of weaned calf per exposed female to 440 pounds. What happens if we use bull 2? Our expected consequence of that, again, fast forwarding 5-6 years down the road, that 34 pound increase in mature cow weight now means we've got 1,434 pound cows, still at an 85% pregnancy rate, still having 82% of those cows weaning off a calf. That 30 pound increase in weaning weight equates to calves weaning off at 530, but we do the math and take the percentage of cows that are actually weaning off a 530 pound calf, we see we bump pounds of weaned calf up to about 434.6 pounds per exposed female. So, take it a step further. Let's just imagine this is a 100 cow operation. We got a 20% keeper rate on heifer calves that we're going to develop to be our next set of cows. By the next generation, if we use herd bull 2, each year we expect to be weaning off about 74 calves. 41 of those are going to be steers. 33 of them are going to be heifers. They're going to be at a 530 pound pay weight when we sell them. Those 74 calves at that weight are going to result in 39,220 pounds of pay weight at weaning. If we use bull 1, as a result of improved fertility in the cow herd long term, we're actually going to be weaning off 79 calves, 44 of which will be steers, 35 of which will be heifers. At that 500 pound actual weaning weight, we do the math, those 79 calves at 500 pounds result in 39,500 pounds of pay weight at weaning that we've got to take to market. So bull 1, more as a direct result of improved fertility, generates about 280 more pounds of pay weight in our next generation of cows. And final thoughts on this that we haven't considered yet, those lighter weight calves are actually going to be worth more per pound when we think about beef industry price structure. And those 1,380 pound cows are going to eat less and cost less to maintain than 1,400 or 1,434 pound cows. So bull number 1, bottom line, adds more profit potential for us as we think next generation. Final thoughts on these topics as we address bull buying season. Each bull you consider using should be evaluated relative to your own unique operation and the genetic values that that bull has to offer to improve your bottom line. Genetic change is a cumulative and permanent thing. The right genetics have the potential to improve your profitability. Thanks for joining us.
This week, we pause to remember our former leader, Dr. Bob Whitson, the Vice President and Dean of OSU Agriculture from 2005 to 2012. Dr. Whitson passed away Thursday, March 17th in Texas. He is known for a number of key developments for OSU Agriculture, including the Second Century Initiative, working with the state legislature to establish $5.4 million to restore 30 ag research and extension faculty and staff positions after budget cuts. After retiring from OSU, Dr. Whitson lived in San Antonio near his grandchildren. He then returned to Texas A&M a short time later to lead agriculture and life sciences programs until his retirement there. Dr. Bob Whitson was 79. Our sincere condolences to the Whitson family.
Last Thursday was Ag Day at the Capitol, and we'll have a story for you on next week's show. Until then, we want to leave you with some footage of that event. Now, if you saw something on the show that you like, you can always visit our website at sunup.okstate.edu and follow us on YouTube and social media. I'm Curtis Hare, and remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at sunup.